Welcome back into the Arrowhead Pride Rapid Reaction Show. I am Steven Serda, joined as always by my guy Rocky Magana. Kramer Sansone in the background, helping us keep this thing moving tonight after another Kansas City Chiefs victory on Sunday Night Football against the Los Angeles Chargers. Chiefs win 30-27, improved to 8-2 on the year, and now have an absolute stranglehold in the AFC West. This game really kind of was the AFC West championship in a way, and Chiefs get it done. It wasn't pretty at times. I was definitely wavering at times throughout this game, Rocky, but Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are just absolute studs. And they were the difference in this game. Travis Kelce just went absolutely off, had 3 touchdowns, another incredible performance by him. And Mahomes gets it done late in the fourth quarter after Justin Herbert led the Chargers on a touchdown drive to take the lead. Again, Chiefs improved to 8-2, Rocky. Got to be feeling pretty good right now, even though it was a little rough at times tonight.
Oh, sweet Lord. I'm going to need a new pacemaker. I don't have a pacemaker, but I'm going to need a pacemaker after this one. But one thing is for certain, Chiefs Kingdom, there is no paternity test needed. Travis Kelce is Derwin James's daddy. If they go on Montel Williams tomorrow, it will be confirmed that he is the father. You know, I don't care what you say. He may have been shut down a little bit and had some mental errors in the first half, but Travis Kelce, when the game is on the line, you know, him and Mahomes are going to find a way to hook up, and he is going to prove why he is the greatest tight end to ever play football. His yards after the catch in SoFi Stadium probably have to be more over the last 2 seasons than any Chargers or Rams tight end for their entire season. I mean, Travis Kelce shows up against the Chargers every single time. And this was really a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type of game. Like, things could not have gone more wrong in the first half for the Chiefs, and they couldn't have played like worse, like situational football. And then in the second half, they just woke up and they said, "Hey, if we don't stop messing around and don't, lock things down, we're gonna, let these guys think that they still belong in the race for this division." But when the chips were on when the game was on the line, the chips were down. The Chiefs found a way to do it, and Mahomes proved once again why there is no question. Hey, Dolphins fans, Tua doesn't do that tonight. You know what? I mean, Mahomes is the MVP. I don't want to hear any other discussion. Mahomes is the MVP.
So I wanted to talk to you about that tonight because he is definitively the MVP frontrunner at this point in the season. In this game, I think he's just widened the gap even more. I don't think anybody else is close to Patrick Mahomes in the MVP race right now. He's just week after week. They're 8-2. They're sitting atop the AFC now, and Buffalo won today, but they're still banged up, and Josh Allen is still struggling a little bit, and they're trying to overcome some things there, but there's no other team in the AFC right now that you have more confidence in than the Kansas City Chiefs. And Mahomes goes 20 of 34 for 329 yards and 3 more touchdowns tonight. Again, Travis Kelce was absolutely dominant, 6 catches for 115 yards and 3 touchdowns. And just offensively, this wasn't the prettiest performance by Kansas City, but, acknowledging all of the injuries that they have coming into this game, and wide receiver Kadarius Toney left the game, did not return. He had a hamstring injury, which is not great for a guy that we had high hopes for coming into this game. I think we thought we were going to see him have a larger role than he did, and he really didn't. Then exits early with the hamstring injury, which is what he was on the injury report early in the season in New York for. So that's something we're going to have to monitor. We'll see if Juju is able to come back next week. And then Clyde leaves the game and does not return. And, man, I think that all of that kind of led to this out-of-sync Chiefs offensive performance. But at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the world. And they did enough throughout the entire contest to just keep hanging around and going back and forth. I think there was 6 lead changes in this game. And it was just absolutely all over the place for the Chiefs at times. But when they have these inexperienced pass catchers, and, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I think, only wound up with 1 catch in the game. But Sky Moore finally getting some looks and finally making some plays in some key situations Sky was really good tonight, I thought, at least offensively and catching passes from Patrick Mahomes. Like, he had multiple times where it was like a key third down and Sky Moore comes up with a big play. So it was a sloppy performance at times from the Kansas City Chiefs offense, but they're still able to overcome all of that and win another tight game against the Los Angeles Chargers. So factoring in all of the injuries, like, I'm not even really upset with the kind of up and down performance from the offense tonight.
No, 100%. I mean, they made a big deal the entire game about how thin the Chargers are at wide receiver. I mean, the Chiefs were equally as thin by the end of this game. You had Mahomes and a bunch of backups at wide receiver. And when they drafted Sky Moore, the thing we kept on hearing was he has the best release in the draft off the line, the best release off the draft. Best release off the line in the draft. You saw that tonight in that third down catch against Derwin James when he just left Derwin James in the dust, right? Sky Moore looked better tonight when he was needed than he's looked all year long. He had 7 receptions coming into tonight. I mean, thank the Lord for Sky Moore tonight, because this is what we needed. We needed our bottom half of our wide receiver crew to come through when with Juju out, with Kadarius Toney going down, with Mecole out, like you said. I think the Chiefs missed Juju more than anything today, much more than they missed Toney or Mecole. Juju really has been that chain mover for them. And, Justin Watson and Sky Moore, like you said, really stepped up. And with all things considered, you're going against the next best team in your division. You're going against a team that a lot of people had as a Super Bowl pick preseason, right? You're going against a team where with a great quarterback and a defensive-minded coach, and everything pulled together, you came out with a win. You got a 3-game lead on your division. The white on whites continue to play. You continue to win, when you bring out the whites. And I don't see how you're anything but just ecstatic after tonight's game.
So I think some of it in the first half too was the Chiefs trying to figure out what to do without having Juju Smith-Schuster on the field, because as we've seen, like, he is really, really important to this offense, and just being the reliable guy that is always going to be where he's supposed to be. It is going to be that reliable chain moving kind of intermediate option for Patrick Mahomes when the defense is trying to focus on Travis Kelce and shut Travis Kelce down. And even then, I mean, we see what happens. Like, you just can't shut him down. Like, he's just absolutely unguardable. But I think in the first half of this game, they were really trying to figure it out. And it seemed like it took some more injuries for them to be like, okay, we got to put Sky Moore out there. But Sky was impressive tonight. And really, so far in his rookie season, this is easily his best performance and easily the most faith that the Chiefs put into him throughout this entire season so far. But they didn't really have an option. So I'm interested to see if his play was good enough for them to give him a bigger role moving forward, because we see that as a receiver, he can be a playmaker for this offense. He is much better at that than he is at returning punts, which is not something he should be doing. And with Kadarius Toney leaving the game with an injury, he had to go back and do that again tonight. But we saw early on in this game, the Chiefs were using a ton of 3 tight end sets. I know Kramer already threw up that Jody Fortson pass that was an absolutely beautiful dime from Patrick Mahomes. But they were doing that, I think, because they didn't really trust the wide receivers in the first half. And then eventually they kind of settled into things, and Andy Reid was like, all right, well, we just got to put the bodies out there and hope these guys can make plays. But man, I continue to be impressed with this team every single week. And this wasn't a dominant performance. Like, there's a lot of things to nitpick about the way the Chiefs played in this game and different aspects of the offense and the defense as well. And we'll get into all of that here on the Arrowhead Pride Rapid Reaction Show. But ultimately, Chiefs win. They're 8-2, sitting atop the AFC West. It's all but over in the division. And the Chiefs are the front runner in the AFC right now, and they are the number 1 seed in the playoffs. And all they got to do is win out. And Rocky, next week, they're playing the Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford left today's game, and it sounds like he might have his second concussion in 2 weeks. They were already down their backup quarterback, John Walford. So the Kansas City Chiefs might be taking on a 3-7 Rams team next week with their 3rd string quarterback.
And minus Cooper Kupp. minus the best wide receiver in football. And I think when you look at the first half today, a lot of what you saw was that this Chargers defense is really bad at stopping the run. Like they were averaging over the last 3 games giving up 190 yards rushing per game. And what the Chiefs needed to do in this game is run the ball. And in the first half, you saw Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy were reluctant to run the ball. Like it was working, but they wanted to put the ball in Mahomes' hand. They wanted to try to pass. They wanted to try to do all these things. And Mahomes was not getting protection because they weren't running the ball. And the Chargers pass rush was just pinning their ears back, and they were just going after Mahomes, and Mahomes was getting hit. Mahomes was out of rhythm, all these things. What happens? They come out the second half and on that opening drive, and they attempt one passing play, and they just run the ball down their throat. They just run it to McKinnon. And then what happened? All of a sudden, their front four, the Chargers front four, can't just rush every single time. They have to first stop and say, wait, is this a running play? And then go after Mahomes. Well, what's that do? That gives Mahomes an extra second in the pocket. That gives the offensive line the advantage in blocking the defense. It sets up the entire thing. It draws them into the line of scrimmage so that Mahomes can start hitting deep shots, down the field and picking up those 17-yard gains that we saw in the second half. I think, Isaiah Pacheco, this was his coming out party. It sucks that Clyde Edwards-Helaire got injured and he had to leave the game early, but I don't see us really missing him too much. I think McKinnon and Pacheco, really kind of carry the load moving forward. I think that we saw that after Pacheco got blown up by Derwin James on that one pass protection play that got Mahomes hit, that after that, they were like, okay, so passing downs, Jet's going to come in, and he's going to be our passing down guy. He's going to have our pass protection. But running downs, Pacheco was just running angry, and they couldn't stop him. They had no answer for Isaiah Pacheco's physicality today, and that's what the Chiefs' offense has been missing for a few seasons now. It's physicality in the run game. And say what you want about Pacheco's vision, it's still probably an issue. But today, the holes were so big that didn't matter. All he had to do was hit them hard and hit them fast and then make the Chargers pay.
And so this was another up and down performance, I think, from the Chiefs offensive line. I think some of the pressure, especially in the first half of the game, some of it was the offensive line. Some of it was Patrick Mahomes and the offense just as a whole, waiting too long for things to develop and kind of dragging your feet and then not committing to the run early. But then they have a drive. And I was actually talking to my friend about this. I'd be curious the last time the Chiefs had a drive like they had where they just ran 8 plays and did not throw the football aside from a penalty that was overturned anyway, so the play didn't count. And it was like it was Andy Reid just saying, okay, we can't get anything going here. I'm frustrated. We're just going to run the football every single play. And I do think that drive kind of settled the Chiefs down a little bit offensively. And yeah, Pacheco's not a perfect product, but he is a rookie 7th round pick who is finding his way and deservedly is this team's starting running back. And tonight he was fantastic. We talked all week long at Arrowhead Pride about how bad this Chargers run defense is. That was something you had to exploit in this game. And, and if Clyde doesn't get injured, I think we would have seen a lot more of Clyde tonight too. I think Pacheco was always going to get a significant amount of carries, especially when they were struggling early on. And Andy was like, screw it, we're just going to run the ball. But I think Clyde would have been a little bit more involved if he doesn't leave this game with an injury. But man, Isaiah Pacheco over 100 yards, Travis Kelce over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns, Patrick Mahomes, another 300-yard performance, and has totally widened the gap between himself and everyone else in the MVP race. Like, it was just another hallmark performance where the Chargers gave you everything that they had, and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid were still just too much. Like, they just still didn't have the answers to make the plays when they had to. And the defense was up and down tonight. But I also want to give Justin Herbert some credit here. Like, Justin Herbert played really well tonight, and he was really slinging the ball all over the field. And they had that late fourth quarter play to Keenan Allen that set them up to take the lead. And, that was a bad one from Joshua Williams, not the greatest rep of his NFL rookie season. But I think tonight we just saw two great quarterbacks going head to head against each other in a game that both of them really wanted to win. And we also saw some of the youth in that secondary tonight, where Justin Herbert was really just on his A game tonight, and he was slinging the football all over the field, and he was giving the Chiefs' young secondary everything that they could handle.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert, hats off. He literally gave our young secondary like a lesson today. He took them to school, and I mean, we continue to struggle. I mean, honestly, thank God Mike Williams went out as early as he did, because he had one target and he came down with it. We seem to still struggle a little bit with bigger wide receivers, I would say. But hats off to the defense. They did not look good in the first half, and Nick Bolton especially did not look good in the first half. He had a couple of really kind of just really costly mistakes, with a face mask and then hitting Herbert when he was out of bounds. But you'll say one thing about this defense: they do not give up. They will keep coming after you. They will stay in the game. They will stay focused. They won't get down on themselves. They'll make a mistake and they'll come back and they'll keep on going after you. And we saw in the end, in the second half especially, they got after Herbert, with the exception of the one touchdown drive. They essentially shut down the Chargers in the second half. And I got to tell you, when Justin Herbert goes to sleep at night, I got to think that he hears Mike Dana's footsteps just whispering in his ears. I mean, for a second straight game this year, Mike Dana just owned Justin Herbert and the Chargers offensive line. He looked excellent.
Yeah, he had 2 sacks tonight. Chiefs sacked Justin Herbert 5 times on the evening. And Mike Dana was really good tonight. And, we talked early in the season about how impressive he was looking as a rotational edge piece for this team. And I know Spags is moving him on the inside now and kind of putting him all along that defensive line. And it just says how much faith they had in him coming into the season, because he looked really good in the preseason, looked really good early in the year. And then he has that calf injury that's a big setback. And I think it's safe to say that Mike Dana's 100% healthy now, because he looked fantastic tonight. And I think the most encouraging thing, even though, Joshua Palmer torched this secondary, they give up the big play late in the game to Keenan Allen. If Mike Williams doesn't leave the game early, he might have a big game tonight and have a big impact there. But I think the encouraging thing here is that we're seeing promising signs from every level of the Chiefs defense. And that's all you really want, right? They just can't be the worst unit in the NFL. They just can't be a liability when you have Patrick Mahomes on the other side of the ball. And they weren't that tonight. They struggled a little bit, and it was a tight game. But this was just one of those games where I feel like you had 2 quarterbacks who were going to give you everything that they had and try to win this game. And it doesn't matter what defense they were playing tonight. They were going to find some success. And so the Chiefs getting 5 sacks, and, Willie Gay got in the mix with the sack. Chris Jones gets in on the sack. Carlos Dunlap had another impressive game for the Chiefs. And then Nick Bolton, who has come under some criticism from Chiefs fans recently. And he continues to compile stats. He had another big game tonight, had the game-sealing interception, forced a fumble. Like, Nick Bolton was all over the field for Kansas City tonight. And, I think that I've been a little disappointed by the impact of Willie Gay, because I thought early on in the season we got a glimpse of what he could be. And now, since coming back from his suspension, it's been a little quiet. Like, I thought Willie Gay was going to have a bigger impact. But when these guys are figuring things out, like we saw tonight, that both of them can be playmakers. And so I think that's the most encouraging thing, is that even in a game where you wound up giving up, some big gains and some big plays, and you got burned a couple of times, you gave up your longest touchdown of the season, that Joshua Palmer first quarter 50-yard touchdown. But you have playmakers at every single level, and you have young playmakers at every single level. And that's an encouraging thing to me when it comes to this defense and the way they'll continue to develop the rest of the season.
Oh, 100%. And you think about it, the Chiefs came out ahead on the turnover differential, aside from the San Francisco game, was that the only other game this year?
Probably. They don't force a lot of turnovers.
Where we won the turnover differential. We had multiple turnovers in this game by Nick Bolton, So, I mean, say what you want about, if he's out of position. There's 2 things that Nick Bolton can do. Nick Bolton can put pressure on the offense and make things happen, and he's a good tackler, and so I think that, yes, there's always going to be growing pains with this defense, as young as they are. This secondary, there's going to be tons of growing pains. You're going to see things like a Josh Palmer have the best game of his career, so far. When your young secondary is really kind of developing and gelling, especially if you have somebody like Juan Thornhill, who's really one of the vets of that secondary, kind of go down and go out of the game. To see Brian Cook come in and not get burnt deep. I mean, that's really all you wanted out of Brian Cook after Thornhill went out, was to not, really, be the issue. And he wasn't the issue. He held his own, and he had a decent game. And so I think that as this defense keeps moving further and further in the season, we're going to see them keep growing and maturing and kind of gelling. And I think that, the crazy thing to think about is that the Chiefs' best football could still be ahead of them, especially on the defensive side of the ball. If they get healthy on offense, then their best football is definitely ahead of them. I think if we get Kadarius Toney back in the game, you get Juju Smith-Schuster back. This could honestly be the worst game that the Chiefs play for the rest of the season. And that should be scary to the rest of the NFL, because here's the thing. We were down at halftime, but the Chargers did every single thing right in the first half, and the Chiefs did almost every single thing wrong, and they were only down by a touchdown. Any other team is down by 21 points at that point. It just goes to prove that to beat the Chiefs, you have to do every single thing right throughout all 4 quarters of the game, and then you still have to do a little bit more to beat Mahomes and account for him. And if you don't, you're going to see what happens tonight, where, the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, puts the game on his shoulders, puts the ball in Travis Kelce's hands, and they just go and they're going to dunk on your hopes and dreams. And you're just going to walk away thinking, how did we lose this game? I got to think that Brandon Staley and Justin Herbert, every time they play the Chiefs, they have set to walk away just with their hands in the air, just like, what else are we supposed to do against these guys?
Yeah.
And the thing is, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. They're the best. The Chiefs are the best team in football right now.
Yeah, I agree. They got bumped up to number 1 in my AP power rankings last week. That's where they'll stay this week. But I do want to remind you guys, if you're in the comments section, to use hashtag AP Rapid Reaction. We will get to some of your thoughts on the game here at the end of the show. I also want to remind you, if you're listening to us on the podcast page, make sure you stick around after the show. We'll have all the Chiefs post-game press conferences, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, anybody else that they put up there. So make sure you stick around after the show. Again, Chiefs win 30-27 on Sunday Night Football over the Los Angeles Chargers. They improved to 8-2 on the year. Chargers fall to 5-5. It would take a pretty catastrophic collapse by the Kansas City Chiefs at this point for them to not win the AFC West. They are in the driver's seat for the number 1 overall seed in the AFC playoffs, and things are just going really well right now in Kansas City. I want to get back to the defense here for a second, Rocky, and we already talked about that. And I think I've mentioned to you on this show and just, kind of talking about the team this season. I think the defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, has had a fantastic year. Like, I think at times this year, he's been their most consistent play caller and dialing things up. And really the way they've been able to develop these young players, because the criticism of Spags in the past is like, he doesn't want to play these young guys. He always goes with the veterans, even if the veterans are worse than the young players. And this season, he didn't really have that chance. Like, he wasn't really able to make that decision this year. He had to roll with the young guys. And I think this game at times was probably one of his worst games of the season, just in terms of, certain play calls at certain times of the game, and the secondary at times looking confused and out of whack, like guys weren't in the right position or they didn't know where they were supposed to be. That Joshua Palmer long touchdown especially is one that stands out, where it just seems like there was some miscommunication there in the secondary. But he put it together again late in the fourth quarter, and that's when the Chiefs defense really stepped up and made plays. And that's when it seemed like every single drive they were putting pressure on Justin Herbert. And if it isn't for that 3rd and 17 conversion, the deep play to Keenan Allen, they might not even get in scoring position to take the lead late in the fourth quarter. And that's just a play where it's Keenan Allen, it's a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver on a rookie 4th-round cornerback, and Keenan Allen just burned him. And Justin Herbert made a fantastic throw. And that's going to happen sometimes when you've got young players like that. But Joshua Williams has still given you valuable reps. Like, he still played well enough that you're going to keep putting him out there and having confidence in him. And you've got all the confidence in Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson and all these young corners for the Chiefs. But I think that Spags turned things around in the second half, and especially in the fourth quarter, where he was dialing things up and they were putting pressure on Herbert to go make things like that happen. And, sometimes special players make special plays. And I think that's all that was with Justin Herbert. But I think Spags still deserves a lot of credit for this defensive performance.
I'm really happy that you said that, because I think that Spags' greatest strength this season that I think maybe we haven't seen or given credit due to in years past is second half adjustments. I think that, they always say, you always kind of think like, the mark of a great, head coach or a coordinator is you go in the locker room at halftime, you look and see what the other opposing team's been doing, and then you make the adjustments to make, and you come out and you make those adjustments and you shut them down the rest of the way. I mean, say what you want about the touchdown drive that the Chiefs gave up in the second half. Other than that, they shut down the Chargers in the second half. And a lot of that had to do with the adjustments that Spags made. And Willie Gay's sack that he had on Herbert, I don't think I've ever seen a better disguised like blitz than that blitz. I mean, it was simple. He was playing back like he's going to be in zone like he always is, and he just timed it perfectly. There wasn't a single player on the Chargers offense that knew that Willie Gay was blitzing on that play. Like, that's how well it was designed. They had no idea that he was coming, and it worked to perfection. And Spags called it at just the right moment. And I think that's another thing, is that Spags has really done a good job this year of understanding the tempo and the flow of the game, and knowing when to call those blitzes and knowing when to push the right button and say, okay, this is when we're sending Willie Gay Jr. This is when we're blitzing L'Jarius Sneed. He's not just like blindly just throwing bodies at the other team's offensive line. Like, there's a philosophy and there's a thought process to it, that at the time and place and the position in the game and where they're at, that this is the time to dial up this exact blitz at this exact moment. And I mean, it worked. And I think that the one calling card that you're seeing of this defense is that when the opposing team has the ball and they have their chance for their quarterback to have a heroic moment, like Mahomes had his heroic moment. He drove the Chiefs down the field and they scored a touchdown. Well, guess what? Herbert, you had 36 seconds. You know what? That's almost 3 times as much as Mahomes had against the Buffalo Bills. You know what I mean? This was your chance for your heroic moment, and Spags shut you down. Like, he just it wasn't even like a question of whether or not the Chargers were going to put this game in question. After the Chiefs scored the touchdown, the Chiefs defense came out and Chris Jones got a sack, and then they rushed Herbert and caused an interception. It was Spags, for as much criticism as he's gotten in the past as the Chiefs defensive coordinator, I think that this year he's coaching his tail off.
Yeah, I think he's been great this season, and I think that he deserves some credit. And like I said, it says a lot about the kind of season that he's having as a play caller and as a defensive coordinator, with all of the young players that they have on that side of the ball, and the way they're developing these guys and turning them into playmakers. Now, they get the turnovers tonight, which is nice to see, because I think that's been the biggest issue for me this season with this Chiefs defense, is they're just not forcing turnovers the way you feel like they should when they're able to get pressures. And they've got these explosive linebackers, and, some of it might be the youth of this secondary, but they're continuing to get better every week. Like, there's still things you can point to each and every week and say, like, well, I was impressed by this. I was impressed by this that they did defensively. Like, they're not perfect. The Chiefs defense certainly is not perfect, but they're continuing to progress as the season goes on. And I think that's all you can ask for them, is that they continue to improve each and every week. And I think they certainly are doing that, even in a night where tonight wasn't their strongest performance, but they made enough plays, especially in the second half of this football game, to walk away with the win. So again, a huge win for the Kansas City Chiefs over the Los Angeles Chargers. They improved to 8-2 on the season. Patrick Mahomes just absolutely owns the AFC West. Travis Kelce's just out here shattering records week after week now. It's just good. It's good to be in on the Kansas City Chiefs right now, Rocky. That's pretty much all I got on tonight's show.
I mean, Chiefs Kingdom, yeah, appreciate this era of Chiefs football. We've never, as Chiefs fans, at least as far as Chiefs fans in my and yours age group, we've never seen a Chiefs football team at that play at this level year in, year out. Mahomes is a gift to us. Every game that Patrick Mahomes plays in a Chiefs uniform, do not take it for granted. Every game that Andy Reid coaches for the Kansas City Chiefs, do not take it for granted. There is 31 other teams in the league and fan bases that wish that they had Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid combination on their team. We are the luckiest fan base to get to sit here and watch this every single week. And I am just I do like it's always said about Patrick Mahomes is like, don't take him for granted. Like, he does so many amazing things that they seem commonplace, but don't take this for granted. This is not normal. We are watching Michael Jordan in his prime, and he is the quarterback of your team. I mean, get stoked about that.
It's gonna get buried in the Travis Kelce performance, but that throw to Jody Fortson in the first half of this game was absolutely insane. Like, there's just not very many dudes that can make that throw in that window. God. Is absolutely insane. That pass, and I feel like it's gonna get lost a little bit, but it was absolutely incredible. But again, if you want to comment and sneak some observations in last minute, you can using hashtag AP Rapid Reaction Show. What do we got, Kramer? Who gave up the first Palmer touchdown? Is the secondary going to be an early target in next year's draft? No, I mean, I think that they're pretty confident with the young players that they have right now. They might, you can always add more depth, but I'm trying to think back, Rocky. It was definitely, I feel like maybe it was McDuffie, but he handed off to a safety because he thought he had help. And I don't remember exactly which safety was it. Juan Thornhill, who didn't pick up Joshua Palmer. And so he just broke free for a touchdown. Like, it was a blown coverage. Like, it seemed like they had the right assignment there, but somebody didn't hold up their end of the bargain for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I think McDuffie did give it up, but I think it was that he was expecting help over the top, so he passed it off. McDuffie isn't going to get burnt just like that very often, especially if the person's not Justin Jefferson. Like, McDuffie's good enough that that's not going to happen very often.
And it's also worth noting that Spags in the first half of this game did change things up a little bit. L'Jarius Sneed, who normally plays predominantly in the slot, was playing outside a lot because he's the bigger corner, and they wanted him to match up with Mike Williams, who always gives the Chiefs problems because he's just bigger and stronger than all of their corners. And so Sneed was actually playing a lot on the outside, whereas McDuffie was playing more inside in the slot. And I think he's perfectly capable of doing that. But it is worth mentioning that he was playing in a different role than he normally plays so far this season. So that might have been some of the miscommunication there too. But I think that's all it was. That happens sometimes in football. It was just a blown coverage by the Chiefs.
I think that if you believe the impeccable Chris Collinsworth, that Sneed said that he said that Sneed requested to play on the outside for this game against Keenan Allen.
So they did it last time when Mike Williams was cooking him in the first half, and then Sneed was playing him a lot in the second half, and he definitely slowed him down.
Yeah, he did. And to address the draft, I do think that the Chiefs are always going to take at least one secondary player every single draft. Like, whether or not it's early or not, I think the Chiefs are always going to add to the secondary because you can never have enough quality bodies back there.
I think adding OBJ makes this offseason offense unstoppable on every level. They can't double Travis, Juju, MVS, or any of them. It also opens up the running game. I just think Odell Beckham Jr. at this point is just wishful thinking. I don't think the Chiefs are really that interested in him, despite the fact that, they've shown some interest in him. I think Kansas City always shows interest in any of these veteran players if they can come in on a cost-effective deal. It really seems like Odell is really interested in going to Dallas right now, who had a dominant win over the fraudulent Minnesota Vikings today. But I just don't think the Chiefs are really all that interested. Like, we saw tonight, like, what Sky Moore can do if given an opportunity as a pass catcher. And they're really high on Kadarius Toney, and Juju's really important to this offense. MVS didn't really do much tonight, but he's going to continue to have a big role and get a lot of snaps in the offense. I just don't think Odell Beckham Jr. really makes a lot of sense for an 8-2 football team that is still the number one scoring offense in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm still not sold on the OBJ thing. I think that the only way you see the Chiefs make a play for OBJ is if Kadarius Toney's going to be out, for the rest of the season, and McCole Hardman's not going to come back. I think that if they find themselves down 2 wide receivers for the rest of the season who are legitimate threats, even though OBJ is a drastically different type of player than both of them, maybe they say they want to go out there and add another playmaker and add another body. But I really don't see it at this point, and I really don't see both those guys being out for the rest of the season.
All right, final one, Kramer, before we get out of here. Thrilled to witness the greatness. That's Patrick Mahomes. He's a once-in-a-generation player, and all Kingdom fans get to see this NFL history being made. Yeah, don't take it for granted. Patrick Mahomes is a special, special player. He's on the verge of winning his second MVP. The Chiefs, in what was supposed to be a little bit of a down year for Kansas City while they try to rebuild and retool the roster a little bit. And all these teams in the AFC are loading up and they're all coming for Kansas City. And the Chiefs, through 11 weeks, sitting here, number one overall seed in the AFC again, 8-2, scoring points against everybody. The defense is playing better and better every single week and making enough plays to where you don't feel like you got to worry about them. Like, the Chiefs are just a really good and well-run organization right now, and a lot of it is made easy by the greatness of Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, 100%. I think that Patrick Mahomes is the one quarterback in the NFL where it doesn't, like, it matters who his wide receivers are, but not as much as it matters to another quarterback. Like, you're not going to, like you see, he has his B roster this entire game, and he's still out there throwing dimes and making plays. I think that I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but remember a few years ago when Sammy Watkins said that he was a reptilian lizard king or whatever, like, if Patrick Mahomes came out tomorrow and said, I'm a reptilian lizard man, I'd believe it. I wouldn't question him. I mean, there's just something not normal about this dude. He is another level above, competitor wise, athleticism, skill wise, just coolness. He's just so, like, Lenny the Cool was cool under pressure, but Patrick Mahomes has just got ice in his veins. I think that might be the one thing that sets him apart more than anybody else, is that he's never, even when he's under pressure, he's not under pressure. He's looking to make a play, right? And so, I mean, he's one of one. He's him, right? I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah, on a weekly basis, we're witnessing history with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Like, 2 first ballot Hall of Fame players here with the Kansas City Chiefs right now. So enjoy every minute of it. It's fun. We're having a blast here at Arrowhead Pride. Again, the Chiefs win 30-27 over the Los Angeles Chargers. They take a commanding lead in the AFC West. I want to remind you, if you're listening to us on the podcast page, make sure you stick around after the show. We'll have all of the post-game press conferences. If you enjoy everything that we do here at Arrowhead Pride, please subscribe, rate, and review. You can follow Rocky on Twitter at Rocky Magana. You can also follow Kramer on Twitter at Kramer Talks. I'm Steven Serda. That's where you can find me. Appreciate you guys. Kansas City's 8-2. We'll talk to you guys again this week on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network.